What's going on, traders? It's Mike from CapitalHillFX. Today, I'm just going to be going through a weekly market analysis, going over pairs that could potentially play out for this upcoming trading week. Now, usually on these YouTube videos, I like to recap all the trades that I took this past week with my premium members. I'm feeling like me going over all of my trades is very redundant, and I'm only going to do that with my premium members just to give them an added benefit for the actual membership. And again, if you want to join the premium membership, it's $59 a month. You get a free week trial just to get a good idea if the community makes sense for you. 4 highly comprehensive PDFs, 2 hourly long sessions per month, exclusive trade orders, the exclusive community chat, a very good community that fosters a very, very good learning environment. So we're going to go through all of the pairs that could potentially play out. We're going to keep this super, super chill, and we're going to go through it very efficiently. So if you guys don't know already, I just trade bounces off of daily horizontal levels. I go on the daily 12-hour time frame. I'm analyzing the market structure, and then I go to the lower time frames to analyze the price action to trigger an entry. Daily time frame on AUD NZD. We're actually going to recap a trade that I took last week really quickly. We can see that we have a significant daily horizontal level that price has interacted with as support and resistance. In the past, we actually bounced here as resistance previously. I think it was 2 weeks ago, late 2 weeks ago, we bounced here as resistance. And then we came up here and showed some type of bearish price action. We'll go down to the hourly time frame to see the price action that actually triggered the entry. We can see how we had a really deep push into the zone. And if you know how I trade, I like to wait for that deep push into the zone before looking for that bearish price action. Then once we actually came up to these previous highs where price has interacted with in the past, then we actually formed a lot of bearish price action, right? Bearish candle closures, impulsive moves toward the downside, and then those top heavy wicks. Once we actually wiped out this little minor structure right here, we can see we sort of have an hourly support resistance structure here. Once we actually closed past the zone and actually showed a very nice bearish impulsive candle with the position of the real body near the bottom of the candle, that's when I actually placed the entry. And then I actually ended up taking profits near the previous lows, right? I like to take my profits near the previous structures, a little bit below or above the previous structures, just because a lot of times, especially with downtrends or uptrends, if you're doing a counter trend trade, you want to be able to take those profits before price actually goes against you and comes back to the entry or stop loss. So for future reference, looking at AUD NZD, let's look at some other levels that we could potentially trade off of. This is still a very valid level that we could potentially trade off of. So if price does actually make its way back towards this significant horizontal level, I may be looking for downside movement. Inversely, we could sort of see a support level down here, but it doesn't seem as clear. So this is the only level that I would be looking for on AUD NZD. It's not as well developed, so we're going to put that in the medium priority. GBP NZD daily time frame. I actually called this trade out live time with my premium members, and I guess we are doing a little recap, but we can see daily time frame, super clear zone that has clear intent with direction. That's the number one thing I'm looking for when I'm outlining my support and resistance levels. Clear intent with direction. Every single time we come to this zone, we bounce towards the downside or bounce towards the upside, right? And then if we break through it, we come back and test as support or resistance. That's all I was waiting for right here. We can see we broke through it as resistance. I was waiting for it to come back as support. If we go down to the hourly time frame, the reason I actually exited this trade is because of the price action that we were developing once the markets began or started to close, right? We can see we had a lot of top heavy wicks, and then we closed with this beautiful bearish impulsive candle that closed near the bottom of the candle, but it actually just came back and retested the zone to actually push higher. But during the time, like when I was actually in the trade, I would exit this trade 10 times out of 10, just because it looked like we were forming another lower high in this preceding downtrend on the smaller time frames. And it just seemed like a better idea for me to actually exit the trade. And again, this was Friday afternoon, actually Friday morning. This was around 6, 7 a.m. my time. And I decided, you know what, I don't want to risk any of the profits that I made this past week. And I'm just going to end up exiting the trade around break even. That's exactly what I did. And with this type of price action, it's better off to just exit the trade rather than thinking we're going to wipe out the highs, right? We try to wipe out the highs multiple times, and every single time for the most part that we've actually tried to wipe out the highs, we left these top heavy wicks. And then once we actually left this beautiful bearish candle, I ended up closing. But we can see that we're still heading higher. I would like to believe that price is going to end up probably wiping out these previous highs or meeting these previous highs. So we could expect a nice little bullish impulse towards the upside on GBP NZD, just because we do have a nice little daily break and retest off of a significant horizontal level. So super clear break and retest of a significant horizontal level. If we come back to this zone, I would be looking for potential buys again, just because it's a super, super clear zone. And we can see we've bounced here multiple times before actually pushing towards the upside. So I do have my alert still set around the significant horizontal level. If we come back and retrace to this zone, I'll definitely be looking for buys. But even a zone up here, I mean, the only extreme zone that I would be pointing out is this one right here. It's a little choppy to know if it's going to be this zone, So that's why this zone is the super clear one. That's the only one I'm going to be looking at. And that's another thing. Only identify the zones that are super, super clear. You don't want to have 4, 5, 7 zones that aren't as clear as a certain 1 or 2. So only identify the super clear zones, clear intent with direction, multiple times rejected away from. And we've traded off of it recently. So GBP NZD, we'll put this in the medium priority right underneath AUD NZD. Let's switch to AUD USD. And I guess these are just a bunch of different trade orders that I ended up placing. I apologize about that. I said I wasn't going to do a recap, but I'm just going to go over it very quickly. We can see that we have a super clear daily horizontal level that price was treating as support, broke through, and then we thought we were going to treat as resistance, right? Come back to the hourly time frame. We could see the price action that actually triggered the entry. We could see we rejected away from this level multiple times, pushed into it first, and then pushed into it a second time. And then we ended up coming to meet the highs a third time, right? Then we also had a doji, and we had a lot of indecision once we actually came into this level a third time. So that's what actually triggered the entry, and the entry was actually right here, right? And I always say to my premium members, indecision leads to decision. What does that mean? That means when we come to significant horizontal levels, and we're printing dojis or top heavy wicks, and the position of the real body is near the middle or the bottom of the candle, giving us some type of indecision. And wicks usually give us indecision in the market or give us a good idea that a reversal is in store. Indecision leads to decision. So if there's a lot of indecision around a significant horizontal level, that could be a good indicator that price is going to head towards the downside or towards the upside. And we can see this was a beautiful evening doji star. So we had a nice bullish impulsive move into the zone, a doji candle, and then a nice little bearish impulsive candle towards the downside. That's what actually triggered the entry, and we could see we ended up hitting take profit, and the stop loss is above the previous highs because that is an invalidation zone in the whole grand scheme of things. So this was a nice, I believe, 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio, or excuse me, 1-to-2 risk to reward ratio. We ended up cashing out, I believe, 4% on this trade. So very good trade setup. Let's look in the future for AUD USD very quickly. We can see we still do have this significant horizontal level that price has reacted with. Let's see if we could identify another zone. I think another zone that would be good for me is this one right here. I like this zone down in here. So if price does come out and wipe the previous lows that price has or the structure has put in and come down to this significant horizontal level, I would definitely be looking for buys towards the upside. But for right now, it looks like we're floating through substructure, just waiting for price to make a distinctive push towards the upside towards this level or the downside towards this level. So again, we're going to put this in the medium priority and then keep it pushing. Euro USD, we had a nice little bearish push off of this significant horizontal level. And I actually called this trade out live time with my premium members. I was just waiting for price to come up to the significant horizontal level and wait for a bearish push towards the downside, and that's exactly what ended up happening. We can see we have a super clear weekly / daily zone that price has interacted with in the past. I'm just going to get rid of this zone right now. It looks like we kind of have a nice little zone right here. Considering price isn't really respecting it right now, I'm just going to get rid of it, but this is sort of a minor zone, maybe on the 12-hour or 4-hour that we would notice. So I'm not going to be trading off of it. Again, just floating through substructure, waiting for price to make a more distinct push towards the upside to look for downside movement, or towards the downside to look for upside movement. So floating through substructure, waiting for either push in either direction. Again, floating in medium priority. And it's very important to prioritize all of your trading setups, especially Sunday afternoon when the markets are closed before they open, to get a better idea of what you need to look at hour by hour or day by day. We can see Euro NZD is beginning to push into a significant daily / weekly resistance level. I'm going to wait for price to actually meet these previous highs, like where the wicks were, before actually looking for downside movement. We can see this is way more of a high priority setup because it could play out within the next couple of candles rather than like AUD NZD or GBP NZD, where we have to wait for more movement before actually monitoring it. I'm going to wait to see if Euro NZD could push into this significant level before looking for potential downside movement. NZD CHF, I was waiting for a bearish push away from a significant horizontal level. We could see that it ended up panning out. What I'm going to be waiting for now, I'm going to see if we can identify another zone. This one doesn't look too bad. Little choppy just because we could see we've treated it as support and resistance in the past, but we could see way more recently we broke through the zone, tried to test as resistance and push, failed, came back, tested as support, bounced, came to this zone, and it looks like it's coming back to meet the previous lows. I don't like this zone as much. I'm going to take it off. I'm only looking at this zone, and to be quite honest with you, it looks like the move already happened. If we do come up to the zone again, cool, I'll look for sells because we are in an overall downtrend and it is coming to a significant horizontal level. But for the time being, just keeping it in the medium priority, letting the alert do most of the actual work. Euro AUD daily time frame, 12-hour time frame actually. Let's go to the daily time frame. We can see we're around a significant weekly resistance level. We'll even go back larger. Weekly time frame, we can see we're coming up to a significant weekly resistance level where price has interacted with in the past. daily time frame, we can see we're sort of reacting with this zone. I mean, not the most bearish pressure, right? We're in a clear uptrend on the hour, 4 hour. And then once we start scoping down to the smaller time frames, we could see that price is starting to interact with this zone. It's just a little sketchy to see if it's reacting as support or resistance, because a lot of people may say that we broke through the zone. I don't think we broke through the zone. I think we're having a difficult time breaking through the zone, like these highs right here. And we could potentially drop towards the downside. So I'll definitely be looking for more bearish price action to give us a better idea that we could be heading towards the downside. Remember, top heavy wicks, position the real body near the bottom of the candle. That's what we want to see when we're looking for bearish price action around significant resistance levels. So I'll definitely be putting this in my high priority for potential sells on Euro AUD. Let's switch to Euro CHF. And I apologize for going so quick, but this is exactly how I'm marking up my charts, right? You have to know if you have a valid trading setup within the first 5, 10, 15 seconds of looking at a chart. Sort of like this one, right? Break and retest of this significant daily resistance level. Looks like we pushed really deep into this zone, but looks like we could still react as support. So let's go down to the hourly time frame. And once we go down to the hourly time frame, doesn't it look a little bit different than what we looked at on the daily time frame? Like on the daily time frame, it looks like this thing could hold as support because the candle closure is near the middle of the zone. But then once we go to the hourly time frame, doesn't it look like a break and retest of the significant horizontal level? So with these types of setups, I like to wait for way more price action to validate if we're going towards the upside or towards the downside, because we could form a lot of top heavy wicks and then end up dropping towards the downside, and it could be a break and retest of the horizontal level. But if we end up wiping out these highs, having a nice little bullish impulse, and then coming back to retest for support and then looking for upside movement, I mean, that would look good as support, right? So as easily as this could test as support, it could easily test as resistance as well. So we want to be very mindful of the price action around the zone to get a better idea of which trading decision we want to make. So Euro CHF, I'm going to put this in my high priority, but I'm not sold if we're bouncing here as support or resistance yet. So we're going to wait for the price action to develop before actually making a sentiment. Look at this, all euro-based pairs in the high priority for the winners this week, right? Let's switch into GBP JPY. Daily time frame, we can see we're floating through substructure right now. I was waiting for price to push into this significant resistance level. Looks like we didn't have enough buying momentum to actually push towards the upside, and I wouldn't have guessed it because we had a lot of bottom heavy wicks forming, and then it looked like price was going to make a move into the significant horizontal level. We failed to actually push into the zone. It looks like we're actually forming a little downtrend structure, probably on the hourly time frame. So with this being said, I'm waiting for price to dig deep, melt towards these previous lows, and then you guys would know what I'll be waiting for. I'll be waiting for a buy towards the upside, not waiting for a smart money concept, institutional trading, liquidity flow, order block, smart money. I'm done with that. All right. Just waiting for a bounce into the significant horizontal level, and I'll be buying. Medium priority, and then we're going to keep it pushing. GBP USD. GU. Looks like price is making its way to this significant daily / weekly resistance level. I'll just be waiting for a push towards the previous highs, these nice daily, weekly highs, and then I'll wait for potential downside movement. This is way higher in the medium priority just because it's super clear, but we still have another, 100, 200 pips before it ends up actually playing out. So again, just letting the alert doing the work, and once the price actually enters the significant highs, then I'll be looking for potential downside movement. Yeah, we need another 200 pips of movement before looking for that, so I'll wait for that to play out. GBP AUD, it looks like we just wiped out a significant horizontal level. Let's go back to the weekly time frame. We just wiped out a significant daily / weekly support resistance level that price has interacted with in the past. I'm waiting to see if we can come and break and retest this zone. I actually traded off of this zone last week and ended up getting stopped out. I thought that price was going to end up bouncing towards the downside. After all, we did have a very strong bullish impulse towards the upside, and we know that the market doesn't move in one direction, right? We move in impulse and corrective phases. So I really thought that price was going to have a nice little retracement towards the downside after this nice bullish impulse, and we are around a significant resistance level, but it looks like price actually ended up wiping out the zone. Let's go down to the hourly time frame and see that price action that's happening. We can see this was the entry. I ended up entering after we had this top heavy wick and then more bearish price action. We can see we wiped through the zone, and it looks like we've already tested that support multiple times, and we're clearly creating that uptrend structure. I'm going to wait to see if we could pull back to this zone. If we could pull back to this zone and like somehow meet these previous lows, then I would definitely look for upside movement. On the off chance that this does happen, then I would definitely be looking for buys. But let's go back to the daily time frame and see if we could look at another zone. Actually, we'll need the weekly for this. Yeah, the only zone that seems super clear to me are these highs right here. So to be quite honest with you on GBP AUD, I'm only looking for price to come back and retest this zone before looking for upside movement. And again, medium priority, and I'm letting the alert do most of the work for us. We're not monitoring this on an hour-to-hour basis. Only the euro-based pairs we're doing that with right now. Going into GBP Canadian dollar, weekly time frame around a super clear weekly / daily horizontal level. Looks like we are coming up to the previous highs that price has interacted with, or the zone has interacted with. Let's go down to the daily to see how we're doing here. Looks like we're starting to gain some type of bearish sensitivity, some selling sensitivity. Let's go down to the hourly time frame. Yeah, we're forming a lot of bearish price action around the significant horizontal level. Right when the market's open, I'm going to be very mindful if price like sort of tries to test the previous highs or even just comes back and taps a little and then forming those top heavy wicks, something like this. Like see this top heavy wick or a bearish impulsive candle. Like that's what I'll be looking for on GBP Canadian dollar. This is definitely a high priority setup. This is going to be an hour by hour decision if I'm going to be placing sells, but this definitely looks good for potential downside movement on GBP Canadian dollar. Let's switch to Euro JPY. I actually placed a sell on Euro JPY last week. That didn't end up panning out, but we could see it did end up panning out on a daily time frame. But once I placed it on the hourly time frame, it didn't end up panning out. Anyway, super clear daily horizontal level that price has interacted with in the past. And then we go down to the hourly time frame and we can see that I ended up placing the sell order, getting stopped out, popped above the zone, tested as support, failed, came back, tested as resistance, and then pushed. I'm one of the most transparent traders in the space. Like most traders, they're going to be like, no, I didn't get stopped out of this. I just like simulated it, right? Like I didn't mean, no, I got stopped out of it. That's the reality of trading. You're going to lose trades. You're going to win trades. The only thing guaranteed in these markets are losing. So you need to mitigate your risk when you're losing, control your emotions, and execute on those high probability setups. And just keep mitigating your risk and getting those high risk to reward ratios. That's what will actually allow you profitability in the long run, is those high risk to reward ratios and mitigating risk throughout the whole entire process. And of course, controlling your emotions. Anyway, Euro JPY daily time frame. Another zone that looks pretty good to me. This does look like a good zone because we're wicking around it like crazy, but it's not as nice of a zone as this one in my subjective opinion. So I'm going to wait for price to make a clear push into these previous lows right here, this nice little zone that I've outlined. And we're going to wait to see if we can make a distinctive push into that zone before looking for upside movement. I'm going to keep this in the low priority just because we need a ton of movement before actually moving to this zone. And I want to filter this a little bit better. AUD JPY. Looks like we are beginning to wipe out this previous support zone that we've wicked around multiple times. We've hit take profit like 2 or 3 times off of this zone. So I was not chancing another bounce off of this zone. That's actually what I said with my premium members. After we bounce once, twice, 3 times, 4 times off of a zone and we're continuously creating lower highs and lower lows in the process, I end up swaying away from that zone. Let's look at this right here. We could potentially come back and retest this zone as resistance. So I definitely will be looking for price to come back, retraced as resistance, and then look for potential downside movement. Let's set an alert around this significant horizontal level. And people always ask me, Mike, where do you want to see price interact with? And I just recently did a TikTok video about this. I'm going to wait to see if price could sort of interact or come back where price has interacted with in the past. That's what I look for. I wait to see where price has interacted with, and I look left, and then I set my alert around that zone. So I think this is a pretty good zone if we end up retracing back to this zone, and I'll put this at the top of the medium priority. USD Canadian dollar, daily time frame. We can see price try to make its way up to this significant daily / weekly zone. We failed, and it looks like we're floating through substructure right now. It's either we come down to this significant support resistance level that we've bounced at multiple times and we end up buying, or we come up to this significant daily / weekly zone and we end up selling. Whichever one happens first, cool. I'm unemotional to either of them. Whichever happens, happens. Daily time frame on NZD JPY, it looks like we are pushing really deep into a significant daily / weekly support zone. It does look like we have some type of bounce here, right? Let's go down to the hourly time frame and see the price action. Yeah, this looks pretty good. I would need price to wipe out these top heavy wicks. So if we end up opening or the market opens with a nice little bullish impulsive candle, that would look pretty good for buys. I'm going to put NZD JPY in my high priority just because we could have a little bullish bounce towards the upside that would yield us some nice gain. CAD CHF, let's go to the daily time frame. Looks like we had a break and retest of this significant horizontal level. I'll be waiting to see if price could come back to this significant horizontal level before looking for potential downside movement. That's really the only significant structure that I see on CAD CHF. So I'm just waiting for price to make another distinctive push into this zone and then look for that downside movement. I called this trading setup last week, just a break and retest of a significant horizontal level, and it ended up playing out. USD JPY. Looks like we are bouncing. Let me get rid of this. This was a setup that I called last week as well. Looks like we are beginning to bounce on USD JPY. We dug really deep into the zone. Initially, we just had an initial bounce on the top half of the zone, but then we could see we're creating lower highs. If we go down to the smaller time frames, like the 4-hour or the hourly, we could see we are steadily creating lower highs and lower lows. And when we are creating this downtrend structure, we want to see a lot of validated price action that we're going to respect it as support. And for right now, it looks like we are having a nice little like bullish hammer, sort of. I mean, it's not really a bullish hammer, but this is more of like a hanging man, it's called, where the position of the real body is the top of the candle, and then we have this bottom heavy wick, but it's not bullish, right? We don't have a green candle printing right here. We just have that red candle. So I'm going to wait to see if we have some more bullish price action, sort of like NZD JPY, sort of near the same setup, waiting to see if price could wipe out these top heavy wicks and then look for that uptrend structure, or look for that bullish price action. So USD JPY, I'm going to keep this in the high priority as well, just because it does look like we could end up bouncing here as potential support before placing some buys. So definitely we'll be looking for potential buys on USD JPY. Let's switch to AUD CHF. Almost there. AUD CHF daily time frame. We had a break and retest of this significant horizontal level. A lot of people would mark this support zone up. I don't like it just because we've only bounced here once. I'm not going to be looking at anything on AUD CHF. CAD JPY, looks like we are interacting with this nice little zone. It looks like we're pushing way too deep into this zone in my subjective opinion. I just don't like this. Let's go down to the hourly time frame. Yeah, I mean, it just seems a little bit sketchier. I think NJ and UJ have better setups than CAD JPY. I'm going to go to the next one. Euro Canadian dollar. We do have a break and retest of this significant, I wouldn't even call it a daily, maybe a 12-hour zone. If we go down to the 12-hour time frame, we are beginning to have a break and retest of this significant horizontal level. And remember, on the more minor zones like the hour, 4-hour, and even 12-hour, they're not as likely. They're not going to work out as likely, but this one looks pretty good because we are forming higher highs and higher lows on the 12-hour, 4-hour time frame. So it would just be a continuation of this uptrend, and we'd have a break and retest of this significant horizontal level. So I will be looking for potential upside movement. Send alert right at the meat of the zone. I'll wait for Euro CAD to bounce towards the upside before looking for potential upside movement. CHF JPY. I'm flying through these. Daily time frame. This zone doesn't seem as clear to me. I'm getting rid of it just because it's a little choppy and it looks like price hasn't really interacted with it recently, or respected it recently. I just like these two zones, right? Super clear zones. That's what I said before. Make sure you're just identifying those super clear zones. Like I said, we could have had this zone marked up right here. Price has interacted with it, but it's just a little choppy. We want clear intent with direction. We want those super clear zones. NZD USD. Price has bounced here very recently. I think this was last week. This could have been a nice little break and retest of a significant horizontal level. Floating through substructure right now, I don't really see much, to be quite honest with you. Either we're making a distinct push towards the upside, or we're sort of bouncing here as resistance again towards the downside. AUD Canadian dollar, a lot of consolidation, but we did end up bouncing here. Sort of the same deal. I mean, we do have a super clear zone here. I'll send an alert around it, but I mean, for the most part, we're floating through substructure right now. Keeping it in the low priority. We're making sure to prioritize these trading setups. USD CHF, I was waiting for a more distinct push into the zone, and we cashed out on this. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just a super clear weekly, daily support zone that price has interacted with in the past. And I was just waiting for price to make another distinctive push towards these previous lows, start to reject, and then look for upside movement. I'm still waiting for price to push towards the previous lows. I'm going to make this put this in the medium priority just because it looks like it could develop. Just waiting for price to make a more distinctive push towards the downside. Did I do NZD USD? I believe I did. Yes, I did. I did AUD Canadian dollar. 3 more. NZD Canadian dollar. Floating through substructure right now. Waiting for price to make a distinctive push towards this horizontal level or towards this horizontal level. Euro GBP. A lot of consolidation. A lot of indecision. Again, you guys see the levels. Substructure. Waiting for a distinctive push. And then last but not least, GBP CHF. Just a lot of substructure again. This is why it's very important to have those low priority, just because you don't need to check up on these every single day, right? You just set the alert and wait for it. That's all it is. But these are the high priority. Euro NZD, I'll be waiting for price to make a more distinctive push towards the upside into the significant horizontal level before looking for downside movement. Euro AUD, I'm waiting for more bearish price action to form around the significant weekly daily horizontal level before looking for that downside movement. Euro Canadian dollar, waiting for a break and retest of the significant 12-hour/4-hour horizontal level before looking for upside movement. Euro CHF, I'm waiting for more bearish or bullish price action to form around the significant horizontal level before establishing an actual sentiment towards the upside or towards the downside. GBP Canadian dollar, we're starting to form bearish price action around a significant daily/weekly resistance level. I'll wait for more bearish price action to confirm that we're treating this as resistance before looking for downside movement. USD JPY, waiting for bullish price action to form around this support zone. And then last but not least, NZD JPY, waiting for more bullish price action to form around the significant daily/weekly support zone. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys actually learned something from this analysis. I don't want to just provide analysis and you don't get anything from it. Although you could actually implement this into your own analysis. Hopefully you learned some lessons in this video. I love you all. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.